Here's my goal for the next few minutes while I'm speaking. I'd like to present a couple of ideas about how we're using our online and in-person communications and get us thinking and talking, not just in this room, but when we leave today and we're back in our offices, back with our families, and in our communities. And I have 5 simple rules that I'm going to share, or let's call them lessons. That's a better way to call it. And I called it my Learned It in Queens playbook. Cutting edge, innovative ideas, like maybe once in a while looking up and talking to another human might be a good idea. You will get a word in edgewise. I made a promise to Jennifer I'd let you talk after I was done having everything I need to say out. And there is a handout that I'll be sharing. All right? So those 3 things. I've got a couple of things in my favor that's going to help me get through this session. 1, I talk really fast and with my hands. 2, I have been married for decades, so I have very low and reasonable expectations about what a morning conversation looks like. Basically, it's going to be me doing most of the talking until everything is said. 3rd, I was trained in crowd control by old school nuns. Think about that. And lastly, the best, this is the clincher. I worked in human resources for years, so I'm really good at making people feel wildly uncomfortable on every given day. Keep it authentic. Not only keep it authentic, but keep it together like when you're eating this slice, you don't want the cheese to go all over you. Because I get it. Look at all this. It's frustrating when you've left your 39th message and you realize, oh, look at that. I've invented 20 new ways to say I am circling back to you yet again. So it's hard not to resist the temptation to lose it. But we can't. We have to keep it together. And then remember what our authentic voice was supposed to be before all those back and forth messages started. When I thought about growing up in Queens, I realized, looking back at my childhood, I did learn some things there. And if you don't know about the boroughs, Queens people are scrappy and we're resilient because we're like the unsung hero borough. So we have to try hard. And here's the hierarchy if you don't know it. There's Manhattan. Bronx and Brooklyn are only fighting out for top. Brooklyn's kind of winning at the moment in the press. And then there's us in Staten Island fighting out for the lower level. So you really have to try harder. But the more I thought about Queens, I realized it was a pretty decent analogy for how all of us are communicating and using cyberspace. And it's for a couple of these reasons. First off, Queens has 2.5 million people living there. 48% of the population is foreign-born. There are over 800 languages and then even additional dialects being spoken there. In an area, I saw an eyebrow going up, that's only 109 square mile radius. A lot of complexity, a lot of diversity, a lot of communicating happening in a segmented area. The other reason I thought about Queens and our communications that we're experiencing, Queens people get lost a lot because none of us understand how to get our own borough. Nobody does. See, what happened is if you look at the slide and the pictures, we were a bunch of farming villages that got smushed together as it got busier. So you have streets that start and stop and don't make any sense. You could start off at 32nd Road, 32nd Avenue, 32nd Street, I'm not lying, Court and Lane. And then they end, and they start someplace else. And the same thing, 32nd Avenue, 32nd Road, 32nd Lane. And then occasionally they meet up somewhere in Crossroads from hell. I grew up in a pre-app world. We'd all look like a bunch of wilderness trackers, walking around, looking at the sun and the wind in the sky, just trying to figure out how to get from one place to another. And I'm telling you, when you spend most of your formative years getting lost and frustrating, it does something to your core. Pay attention to who some of the people are that came from my borough. Rodney Dangerfield, the comedian and actor. John Leguizamo, the comedian actor. Christopher Walken, he started off as a Broadway dancer and then he changed over the time. Cyndi Lauper, the musician, and Donald Trump. Our borough creates unique and unusual individuals. But like Queens people, we too have to figure out, Queens people are busy figuring out how they're going to get one place to another, but like them, we too are trying to figure out what's going to work for our communications so we can move forward.